All right. How is everybody doing? Thank you for joining the stream. Let's talk some updates. Let's see what we've got for tonight. So here we go. Okay. So let's go through the states that are remaining. Here's what we are dealing with right now. Hope everybody can hear me okay. All the connection's good. So let's talk about the different states that we're looking at right now. Okay, so we have the state of Pennsylvania, which Biden continues to extend his lead in. The latest vote dump has just added votes to Biden's total. So now he's up 27,000 votes in the state of Pennsylvania. He'll continue adding to that lead because regardless of where the votes come from in that state, even if you're looking at the reddest counties all throughout central Pennsylvania, even the reddest counties, the fact is that the election day votes for Trump have already come in. They've already been counted. What's being counted now are the mail ballots. And because Pennsylvania decided to count mail ballots afterwards, which I'll talk about in a second, because they decided to count mail ballots afterwards, even these dark ruby red counties out in central Pennsylvania, rural Pennsylvania, they might still be 70-30 in Trump's favor, but those 30% of votes are still going to come in mostly by mail because, if Democrats have convinced our voters of one thing, it's that we should vote safely, we should vote by mail, and we should vote early. So no matter where you look in the state of Pennsylvania, the votes that are coming in now are falling in Biden's favor. And then, of course, you have votes that are coming from Philadelphia, which are breaking in Biden's favor overwhelmingly. I'm talking, 80 to 90% in his favor. So what I would say is that looks like an insurmountable lead in the state of Pennsylvania. What I do know is that they've come out and said that they're unlikely to announce Pennsylvania tonight. So if you're looking for Pennsylvania, to be the tipping point tonight, it's probably not going to happen, unfortunately. So with that said, they'll continue to keep counting. And, I guess at this point, the only explanation that I have is that the TV networks are in cahoots with the states who are counting, and they just need us to continue staring at MSNBC and Steve Kornacki for 13 hours a day from now until they make up for, until they make enough money. So this is going to be our lives now. Nobody's going to shower, and we're just going to keep on doing this damn thing until somebody wins. So anyway, with that said, let's talk about some other states. We look at the state of Arizona. Now, the state of Arizona, Biden was leading significantly, and then as of yesterday, Trump started to cut into that lead. And so the networks that had called in it, which I believe were AP and Fox, got a lot of blowback because it looked all of a sudden like it was ripe for the taking, and that Trump could possibly come in and flip it. And even me myself, that's the state that I was most nervous about, because the margin that Trump needed to get votes was by about a 60% margin. And as of yesterday, he was hitting 60% exactly. So the votes that were coming in were exactly aligned with what Trump needed to be able to swing the state of Arizona in his favor. Cut to today, all of a sudden, those 60% margins for Trump started getting cut down to 51, 52%. So as of now, at the rate that votes are coming in for Trump in the state of Arizona, and they're still breaking in Trump's favor, but they're not breaking in his favor enough to be able to swing that state. So I think Biden's lead continues to look firm in the state of Arizona, and it also is telling that Fox and the AP refused to rescind their call for that state, so that should tell you something too. Either that, or they've just dug in their heels and now they're pot committed. So it could be either one of those. But either way, everything is trending correctly for Joe Biden in the state of Arizona. Then we look over to Georgia. The last update that we had, Biden was leading Georgia by about 1,600 votes. Now he has tripled his lead. He's now leading by 4,400 votes in the state of Georgia. Those votes are continuing to come in from the Atlanta region and especially the Savannah region. Again, Democratic strongholds. Democratic strongholds. So that is really good news for Biden in that state. It bodes really well for Biden in that state. We do know that we should be looking at recount territory in Georgia because it's so close. I believe that right now it might be either 1/10 of a point away, maybe 9/100ths of a point away. Again, we're talking almost 5,000 votes. I believe that the number of votes left to be counted, I think that there are approximately 4,000 votes left to be counted, and possibly 8,500 overseas and military ballots that will have arrived today. So we should have some type of an answer shortly. But regardless, I would expect Georgia to go into recount territory. With regard to recounts, we've been in situations where recounts have happened before. If you look at Wisconsin, for example, you'll notice that in 2011, there was a recount for Wisconsin's Supreme Court race, and that netted about 300 votes difference from the original count. If you go back to 2016, when Jill Stein ordered a recount in Wisconsin's general election, you will notice that it was a 131 vote difference. So Biden's lead right now in Georgia is about is coming up on 5,000 votes. It's unlikely that a recount would shift it that much, but that isn't going to stop Trump from grasping for straws and doing what it is that he does, which is desperately grovel and claw at whatever he can to try to help himself, because if he's going to go out, he's going to do it looking as pathetic as humanly possible. So that's where we're at in the state of Georgia. Another update with the state of Georgia is that the Jon Ossoff Senate race has officially been called for a runoff. So the way that works in the Georgia Senate is if anybody can run in the initial election, if nobody reaches the 50% threshold, which David Perdue, the Republican, was at for a while, but if nobody hits that 50% threshold when the votes are counted, it'll go into a runoff, which is basically the top two vote getters. So Perdue was at 50.3, then 50.2, and finally yesterday he dropped below 50%. So now I think he ended the day at maybe 49.9 something. But in any case, it's officially going to recount territory. So that makes two Senate races in Georgia that are headed toward, not a recount, a runoff. That it makes two Senate races in Georgia that are headed toward a runoff. And that runoff is going to be on January 5th, so just after the new year. And what that basically gives us the opportunity to do is is salvage the Senate, because right now there are 4 Senate races that have yet to be called, and those races are for Al Gross in Alaska versus Dan Sullivan, the Republican. They are in North Carolina with Tom Tillis and Cal Cunningham, and then finally those last 2 races in Georgia. And so the likelihood of taking an Alaska Senate seat, I would say, is low. The likelihood of being able to flip Tom Tillis' Senate seat in North Carolina is looking slim. I believe that Tom Tillis's lead over Cal Cunningham is 97,000 votes. That's not to say that it can't be done, because the votes that are remaining are from Wake County, which is Raleigh. And so we'll see what happens there. But in any case, it's good to have our contingency plan. And our contingency plan right now is that we have these 2 Senate races in Georgia. And what Joe Biden is showing us right now, by virtue of this vote total continuing to rise higher and higher and higher throughout the night and the days, basically, is that Democrats are capable of winning statewide in Georgia. And not only that, we have a few other things that are working in our favor. There's also the fact that for the Senate race that's coming up in January, Donald Trump won't be on the ballot. And you know, for as much as I dislike Donald Trump, to his credit, he's able to turn out his supporters. And these might not be regular Republican supporters. So, and the fact that he lost might leave a lot of them disaffected. So in any case, without Trump on the ballot, who clearly has an impact, you know, when it comes time to elections, without him on the ballot, we're in a much better position. We have the momentum going into this race. And also, you know, it's not just a matter of winning 2 Senate races in Georgia. And I see that Joe Biden's going to come on. As soon as he comes on the stage, we will. I'll switch over to Joe. So don't worry. I see what's happening in the corner here. It's not just a matter of winning these Senate races in Georgia. It's not just a matter of winning the Senate overall. I mean, this is the difference between a Mitch McConnell-led Senate, which would mean basically no voting rights legislation, no expanding the Supreme Court, no climate change legislation, no, codifying Roe, no, protections for LGBT Americans, especially with Obergefell having passed by the grace of 1 vote, and now the balance of the Supreme Court is fundamentally different than it was before. So, I mean, the results of this election in Georgia are going to basically shape our political climate for a generation. And so everything that I have in me will go toward, helping in Georgia. I know a lot of people have asked what we can do to help. I would look toward Stacey Abrams. She has. Oh, I see Joe Biden is coming on now. So let's.
We'll never be able to measure all that pain and the loss, the suffering that so many families have experienced. We know something about what it feels like to lose to someone. It feels like to...
Can you hear now?
Put a focus on a path to a strong recovery. Look, we both know tensions are high. They can be high after a tough election, one like we've had. But we need to remember, we have to remain calm, patient. Let the process work out as we count all the votes. You know, we're proving again what we've proved for 244 years in this country. Democracy works. Your vote will be counted. I don't care how hard people try to stop it. I will not let it happen. The people will be heard. Our journey is toward a more perfect union, and it keeps moving on. In America, we hold strong views. We have strong disagreements, and that's okay. Strong disagreements are inevitable in a democracy, and strong disagreements are healthy. They're a sign of a vigorous debate, of deeply held views. But we have to remember, the purpose of our politics isn't total, unrelenting, unending warfare. No. The purpose of our politics, the work of the nation, isn't to fan the flames of conflict, but to solve problems, to guarantee justice, to give everybody a fair shot, and to improve the lives of our people. We may be opponents, but we're not enemies. We're Americans. No matter who you voted for, I'm certain of one thing. The vast majority of almost 150 million Americans who voted, they want to get the vitriol out of our politics. We're certainly not going to agree on a lot of issues, but at least we can agree to be civil with one another. We have to put the anger and the demonization behind us. It's time for us to come together as a nation to heal. It's not going to be easy, but we have to try. My responsibility as president will be to represent the whole nation. And I want you to know that I'll work as hard for those who voted against me as those who voted for me. That's the job. That's the job. It's called the duty of care for all Americans. We have serious problems to deal with, from COVID to the economy, to racial justice, to climate change. We don't have any more time to waste on partisan warfare. You know, and more than that, we have such an incredible opportunity to build the future we want for our kids and our grandkids. I've said many, many times, I've never been more optimistic about the future of this nation. There is no reason we can't own the 21st century. We just need to remember who we are. This is the United States of America. And there's never been anything we've been unable to do, unable to accomplish when we've done it together. I hope to be talking to you tomorrow. I want to thank you all, and may God bless you, and may God protect our troops. Good night.
Well, we heard a lot of the themes you would hear if that was a victory speech.
Okay, hang on one quick sec. Okay. Let's see. Okay, so real quick, can you hear the debate? Can you hear, them speaking, or can you just hear me? Just let me know. Just me. Okay, cool. So let's do this. So basically, the first few minutes of that speech, thank you for sticking with me. I appreciate it. So thanks for sticking with me. Basically, the first things he said is the race looks good. We were behind in Pennsylvania. We're gonna win Pennsylvania. We were behind in Georgia. We're gonna win Georgia. And then he went into his regular speech about how about what he's gonna do as president. So let's go back to this race, because I know that people right now are curious about how the actual race looks. And before Biden came on and spoke, we were in the middle of we had spoken about Arizona, we had spoken about Georgia. I want to talk about Nevada real quick. This morning we came in where Joe Biden's lead in Nevada was 11,000 votes. That lead is now jumped to 22,000 votes. That is likely the only update we're going to get from today. That surprises me probably as much as it surprises you, because really all that Nevada has to do is find like 40 card dealers from Vegas and give them like 35 minutes, and I guarantee they can get that state counted. And they could probably do a recount in the next hour. So, but with that said, Nevada just trucking along for all 7,000 people that live in that state. So hopefully at some point over the next, within, somewhere between the beginning and middle of the Biden administration, we'll find out what happened in Nevada, what the results are in Nevada. So we'll wait for those results to come in patiently, and that's where the state of Nevada stands. Again, just to go over the other states very quickly, Pennsylvania, Biden has been expanding his lead precipitously. We're now at 28,000 votes up in the state of Pennsylvania. Let's see if I can find any more specific information on how many votes are left. Yeah, the votes remaining are a little bit more difficult to get a handle on, because I think that states don't want to give out too much information. But with that said, let's go into. And by the way, I'll answer some questions if you have them, if you want to throw them in the comments. Okay, so let's talk about what happens if Democrats and Republicans tie in the Senate. First of all, the Senate Majority Leader would that's a question that I get a lot. Who would be the Senate Majority Leader? The Senate Majority Leader would most likely be. It's not written in stone, but it would most likely be the person who has the majority in the Senate. And because Kamala Harris would act as the tiebreaker as vice president, the Senate Majority Leader would likely be Chuck Schumer, if that's who Democrats put forward to lead them in the Senate. And yes, it would, if we have a split Senate, obviously Kamala Harris will come in and act as tiebreaker. So again, those two Senate races in Georgia are going to be key when we're looking at, not just taking the Senate, but basically reshaping our political landscape for a generation. This is not the kind of thing where you can put off climate change legislation until we have full control of every branch of government with Democrats. This is the kind of thing that needs to be dealt with now. This is the kind of thing that needed to be dealt with yesterday. So that's what we're looking at in terms of the Senate. Somebody asked if that would give Kamala Harris 2 potential votes. It would not. Kamala Harris would be replaced in her seat. That's a question that I've been asked too. Who do I think would replace Kamala Harris in the Senate? It would be up to Gavin Newsom, the governor, to replace her in the Senate. In my opinion, I think Katie Porter would be a great pick. She is a badass and she gets it done. She turned a district that has been red for before I was born, since before I was born, to not even just a district that that leans blue, she turned that district into a solid blue district. So Katie Porter has proven that she is a force to be reckoned with. The downside to bringing her on as a senator would be, of course, then we have that district suddenly becomes competitive again. But I think that's a small price to pay. Orange County in California is trending bluer and bluer anyway. So that would just be my personal opinion. I'd love to know who, and you can write it in the comments because I really would love to know who everybody thinks would be a good selection to replace Kamala Harris in the Senate. And I'm also working on trying to set up an interview with Gavin Newsom. So I will ask him that question and he will not answer me because I think everybody on the face of the earth that has spoken with Gavin Newsom has been asked that question. So I don't know that I'll get special treatment, but I'll try. So that's where we're at with that. Let's see. So, with regard to this question about Nevada and Arizona and Fox and the AP having both called Arizona, to be honest, I do not see a path where Nevada goes in any other direction other than for Biden. So you might be asking, okay, with only votes coming out of Las Vegas and Clark County, why in the world why are they delaying the inevitable? Why aren't they just calling Nevada for Biden? And there's a small part of me that thinks that they've dug in their heels with the issue of having called Arizona while they're still recounting. And actually, in my opinion, Arizona is closer than most states, but they've already called Arizona. And so calling Nevada would mean for a network like Fox, who has already given Joe Biden 264 electoral votes, that calling Nevada would give him the 6 more that he needs to put him over the edge. So that is a big call. It's not just let's call Nevada and we'll see what happens from there. We could always rescind a call. If they make this call for Nevada, because they're pot committed on Arizona, now Nevada is not just Nevada. It's basically saying, okay, we are sure that what's happening is what's happening, that Donald Trump has lost the presidency to Joe Biden. And I think the last person that they want to draw the ire of, because it's still Fox deep down, even though we're seeing grumblings of them starting to separate and abandon him a little bit. It's still Fox at the end of the day. It's still Rupert Murdoch at the end of the day. It's still, this conservative bastion. And I really would never trust Fox to do the right thing. I would expect them to pander to Republicans. So I think that's why we're seeing some reticence to call the blatantly obvious state of Nevada that is now a 22,000 vote lead for Joe Biden, with the rest of the votes coming from the the Democratic bastion of the state, the liberal stronghold of the state. So I think there's a little bit more involved with it. And then there's another little part of me that just thinks that these networks truly enjoy the fact that every single person in the country is staring at Steve Kornacki and Wolf Blitzer and Katie Tur and whoever else is presenting, John King, for 14 hours a day. So, at the end of the day, these media companies are still businesses, and they still want eyes on them. So I don't think that, they're super excited because, you and I both know that as soon as they call that race, TVs are turning off. So I think that there is a slight instance of stringing along that's happening. I think they're just kind of reveling in their moment. So without any regard to the fact that we are all tired, we haven't showered, Steve Kornacki hasn't slept, we're all exhausted. I don't know what day it is. But anyway, that's beyond my control and everybody else's control. So at this point, I think we just continue to keep an eye on things. At least things are trending in the right direction. So like Joe said in this speech, this if you look at a state like Pennsylvania, that was a state that we were behind, and we are going to win that state. If you look at a state like Georgia, we were behind, and now we're going to win that state. So things are really trending in the right direction. Somebody had just asked, is North Carolina gone? And also, aren't the Democrats going to lose one of the Senate races in Georgia? So North Carolina is not gone. I believe, don't quote me on this, but I believe that they have a week to continue accepting ballots that were postmarked in time. I don't know the exact date, but I know that they're waiting for these ballots to continue coming in, and they're continuing to count those ballots. We haven't lost that race, either the Senate or the presidency, but we're not leading in either one of those races. I believe in the Senate in particular, Cal Cunningham is down by about 97,000 votes. So I don't know how many votes remain. I know that it's enough that depending on how those votes fall, they can actually, we still have a chance to take that state. But I would say our best prospects in terms of the Senate are these two Georgia races. Somebody else had asked to answer the second question. No, the one Georgia race is not gone. Both of them have officially been called as runoffs. So both Jon Ossoff and Reverend Warnock will go to a runoff on January 5th. And, once this race is called for Biden, once this race is called for Biden, then we can focus all of our attention on reclaiming the Senate, because like I said, this is not just about winning these two Senate seats. It's not just about taking the Senate arbitrarily this year just because we want to be in the majority. This is about fixing our government so that it works for the next time. Because if we don't fix a lot of the things that are wrong, specifically issues that are dealt with on H.R. 1, for example, which is the voting rights, the John Lewis Voting Rights Act, that would protect us from foreign interference. That would protect us from voter suppression efforts. That would make Election Day a national holiday. It would codify a lot of the changes that we need to see. And so until legislation like that is passed, Republicans will continue to entrench their minority rule, because until we have that fix, then it will just continue to get worse. So that's why there's so much urgency at passing a bill like H.R. 1. And that is not even to say anything about passing desperately needed climate change legislation or expanding the court so that any of our legislation can stand in the courts. Because obviously with a 6-3 court, and not just any 6-3 court, this isn't even like George W. Bush appointees. This is the Federalist Society on steroids. This is Kavanaugh and Alito and Amy Coney Barrett. So it is, you might as well just have, these are the Ted Cruzes of the judicial world, aside from Ted Cruz. So that's the importance of those elections. How can we help Georgia and Stacey Abrams? I was starting to say before Biden went on. Thank you for reminding me. You can check out Fair Fight, which is Stacey Abrams' organization. Stacey Abrams, in the time that she ran for governor and had that governorship stolen from her, that gubernatorial race stolen from her, she was able to register 800,000 voters. And now we're in a situation where we're up by 4,400 votes. Think about the impact that this one person has had. So with regard to helping in Georgia, obviously, I'm sure there's going to be plenty of opportunities to donate to Ossoff and Warnock. But also, my inclination here is, okay, Stacey, what do you need? Tell us what to do, and we will do it. That is what I think in terms of the races out in Georgia. I would look to Stacey Abrams for guidance, because I think she has the best idea of how to facilitate voters in her state. And by the way, voter registration is going to be opened until December 5th. It's November 6th right now, so we have a month to go back in, hit the ground running, and start registering voters. I mean, we look at you can see, based on what happened in this ongoing race right now, just how much of an impact every single vote has. And I'm sure that there are still people in Atlanta, in Savannah, in every, even in every corner of that state who are Democratic voters who still haven't voted. I'd be interested to find out, and I'll try to find it out soon. I'd be interested to find out what the percentage increase of young people is, for example, and how much of that population still has yet to register to vote or cast ballots. So as soon as I get that information, I'll relay it. But I'm sure that there's still more people that we can get registered. So if you're looking to be able to help in a state like Georgia, I think that Stacey Abrams is the person that we look to. So let's see. I will continue answering some questions. Okay, real quick, while I have you, I'm sure that there are people that tuned in that are looking for an update for this race. So let's very quickly go through the states. We're looking at Arizona, where Biden currently has almost a 30,000 vote lead. Trump had been whittling away at Biden's lead over the last day or so, and he was whittling away at it at exactly the rate he needed to be able to eventually overtake Biden. He was hitting 60% in every vote dump that would come in. And then slowly what we saw today is Trump have a less commanding lead. So all of a sudden it went from a 60% margin that Trump was hitting to a 51.5% margin. And that's not enough to be able to overtake Biden in the state of Arizona. So Arizona still is squarely in Joe Biden's corner for right now. And barring some, major cataclysmic shift, it should go for Biden in the end. Then we go over to Georgia, which I was just talking about. Joe Biden is currently up by 4,400 votes in Georgia. That's about 1/10 of a point difference between the two. And so Georgia has already announced that I believe they will be going into recount territory. So that's what we should expect from Georgia. That recount likely wouldn't be finished until Thanksgiving, just after Thanksgiving. So we won't have official answer until a few more weeks in the state of Georgia, but it shouldn't matter because Pennsylvania is the state I'm going to talk about next, has been trending so blue that would already put us over the edge. So again, depending on the network that you look at, Joe Biden has, I believe, either 253 or 264 electoral votes. And in either case, the 20 electoral votes from Pennsylvania would be enough to put him over the edge. So as soon as we hear from Pennsylvania, and I'll bet that Pennsylvania gets called before Nevada, because I know that Nevada doesn't want to be the tipping state, because then that will put Fox and the AP into a really tight spot, because they've already called the probably too close to call state of Arizona. So I'm sure the next state that we'll hear is Pennsylvania, and I'd imagine that we'll hear about that tomorrow. So that is my best guess with regard to what happens in Pennsylvania. Also, I just want to mention too that the votes that we're getting in Pennsylvania, the reason that they're trending so blue is because the Pennsylvania Republican legislature decided to try and hand Trump a gift, and that would be that the first votes they would count would be the election day votes, and they would hold all of the early votes, which they knew were going to go for Biden until election day. So they basically wouldn't be able to count those until starting election day. And you have 2.5 million votes that is clearly going to take days to count. So the first returns were going to be the election day votes, and what that does is gives Trump the early lead, because the election day votes are going to be mostly Trump supporters, mostly Biden supporters, voted early or voted by mail. So it gives the impression that Trump is leading, which he needed, and he broadcast that he needed, because we already knew he was gonna claim that the mail ballots were illegitimate. And so, but to be able to do that, to claim, okay, we need to stop the vote, I'm winning, and then all these votes are coming in, and they're coming in for Biden. Where are they finding all these votes? The Democrats harvest all the votes, and all of a sudden they find just as many votes they need to win, knowing that Trump is going to do that because it's the same song and dance he does every single year. It's the same song and dance he did in 2018. It's the same song and dance he did in 2016, knowing that he is a one-trick pony. Republicans knew in that state legislature in the state of Pennsylvania, they knew that what they had to do was hand him or facilitate that talking point. So, of course, even though they knew they were going to get millions of early votes, they decided not to be able to count them early, like the state of Florida. And for all of my beef, and I'm sure all of your beef with the state of Florida, you got to at least hand to them the fact that they got their votes counted early. And yet in a state like Pennsylvania, we're now coming into Saturday, and still that state is not counted. And that is not an accident. It's by design. It's because Republicans wanted to hand Trump the gift of being able to say, look, that's a state that I had clearly won. And now the Democrats, per usual, are finding votes. And I'm sure they'll continue finding votes until my lead is gone. And of course, everybody knows that they're not finding votes. They are counting votes. But that's what the Republican Party did. They handed Trump the talking point, because everybody from the White House down to the state legislatures in that party is just complicit in the hackery that is wrought by Donald Trump. So that's what's happening in Pennsylvania. What's good in Pennsylvania is that that state is continuing to trend blue. So hopefully we can take out these Republicans. I know that we have a Senate race coming up in Pennsylvania in 2022, and they have a Republican senator. So something to look forward to. Also, Wisconsin trending bluer and bluer every year. They have a Senate race coming up in 2022 as well. So in the event that we don't take the Senate this year, which I don't even want to imagine, because what that would basically be a death knell legislatively for Biden. In the event that we don't take the Senate, we still do at least have the opportunity in 2022 to elect to flip some senators in some states that are squarely blue. And I know that we had some good opportunities this year, but you got to remember the states that we were trying to flip are Montana, are Iowa, are Texas. I mean, these are heavy lifts for us. Even Maine, which that one hurts. But the fact is that the majority of these states that we're trying to flip are not blue territory, whereas a state like Pennsylvania is, a state like Wisconsin is. So that's at least some tiny silver lining in the event that something very bad happens after this January runoff in Georgia. And just to reiterate, because I know some people have asked, a runoff is basically, with these Senate races in Georgia, they let everybody run, and if you don't hit the 50% threshold in your race, then the top 2 vote getters will automatically advance to a runoff. So in both of these instances, Warnock's race against Kelly Loeffler and Jon Ossoff's race against, who did Jon Ossoff go against? Anyway, I'm sure I'll see it in the comments in a few seconds, but again, my brain is breaking. So, in any case, either, David Perdue, sorry. Both of those races are going to advance to runoffs on January 5th. So both things to keep an eye out for. Someone had asked if I think McConnell will remain Senate Majority Leader. What can the Biden administration do to circumvent legislative gridlock? And that is a good question. To answer that, I just interviewed Congressman Jamie Raskin today. That interview will come out on Sunday on this channel. So by the way, I should take a moment to just ask, if you're not subscribed to my channel, please subscribe. I don't ask for money or anything like that. Just if you haven't yet subscribed, please subscribe. I have an interview coming out with Congressman Jamie Raskin. I ask him every question about what can we accomplish legislatively if McConnell is still Senate Majority Leader. I ask him, how can the Supreme Court, is there any way for Trump to steal the election in the Supreme Court? Is there any way for him to use the courts at all to help himself in this election? And I ask him some questions about pardons. Who can he pardon? Can he pardon himself? Would Pence be able to take over and pardon him? What if he stays in office? So a lot of really good questions. So I'm going to hold off on that, because I think that Congressman Jamie Raskin explains it leagues better than I can. But just keep an eye on this channel. In about just over 24 hours, I'll have that video out in this channel. And Jamie Raskin is so smart. He is a constitutional law professor prior to becoming a congressman. He just obviously won his 3rd term this week. So he is a brilliant guy, and he's absolutely somebody who we should be very glad to have on our side. Why was the polling so wrong? Greg asked, why was the polling so wrong again in 2020? I've heard a lot of pontificating about why the polling was so wrong. And I think the answer that has struck me, and that I tend to believe, is that, Trump has basically groomed his supporters to not want to partake in the whole bureaucracy that is, the media ecosystem as we knew it. They don't trust the media. They don't like the media. They think the media is the enemy of the people. And pollsters are a part of that. Trump has decried suppression polls. And so unless, these directives are coming out from Team Trump themselves, I think that these Trump supporters have a tendency to just fundamentally mistrust anybody that they might think is working for the other side. And so like, they don't know who these pollsters are, and Trump hates the polls, and he talks about it every day on his Twitter feed, and how we shouldn't trust the suppression polls, and how it's a voter suppression tactic from the left. And so, when you have pollsters calling these Trump supporters, put yourself in their shoes for a second. Would you be inclined to answer their questions? Because, and God knows that it's not the easiest thing for me in the world to do is not the easiest thing in the world for me to do is to put myself in a Trump supporter's shoes. But I would probably be less inclined to speak with pollsters. So that's my best inclination. I think that there are major issues with polling. It pissed me off. You know what I mean? Like, we're supposed to have a competent polling system in this country. This is the United States. It's 2020. Why are we missing these numbers by 8, 9, 10 points? I think there were polls that said Sarah Gideon was going to win her Senate race in Maine by 7 points, and she ended up losing by several points. That is almost a double-digit swing in the wrong direction. So there are some major issues that need to be worked out with the polling. It may be Trump specific, or it may be, deeper than that. But in any case, this is something that hopefully we'll have to work out moving forward. But I think, with that said, polling aside, I think the important thing remains that it's not really our job to just look at the polls and get complacent. Our job has to be to look at the polls and then ignore them. Like, use them for whatever you need, but the fact is we should still be working to turn out every last voter that we can. We should still be working to register every last voter that we can. We should always be acting like we're down by 10, even if a poll has us down by 10 or has us up by 7, because the fact is that 2016 happened and the polls were wrong, and then 2020 happened and the polls were wrong. So at this point, we can't be relying on polls to give us the answer to anything. So I think the deal right now is just to disregard the polling and just constantly keep pushing forward and keep fighting and keep registering people and keep canvassing and keep getting people out to vote. And polls shouldn't really play a big part in that. It shouldn't matter whether we are polling up or down against Susan Collins. We should be working our asses off to make sure that every single person in that state is registered. And the same goes with every Senate race, every House race, and every presidential race. So that's the deal with the polling. I don't think it's, I think that the pollsters, for their own reputations, for their own sake, have to figure that out. But I think for us, the issue should be more that we have a job to do, regardless of what the numbers tell us. Do I think Trump is as concerned as Susan Collins is? I would say if I had to rate Trump on a scale of concerned right now, from 0 to Susan Collins, I would definitely put him at Susan Collins. And obviously we're reporting that Trump is in a state of despair and he won't talk to anybody, and he's in a state of disbelief, and he won't accept the results, and his aides are trying to stage an intervention. And for as much as I want this presidency over, I'm not going to lie and tell you that I don't enjoy just a little bit the slow descent of Trump's demise. That is the one saving grace of the state of Nevada, stringing us along for what has been 775 days of this election. I believe that's the exact day count that I've been awake staring at MSNBC. So with that said, yeah, I think that it is a little bit nice just to see not a quick takedown, but just a slow, dramatic, deliberate descent from Donald Trump as he watches his lead in every single state just diminish, and the hopes of his presidency continuing vanish right before us. And right now we're also seeing him go on a tweet rampage. So there's always that. The good news is, as of January 20th, 2021, when Trump is a private citizen, he has the ability to have his Twitter account suspended. So looking forward to that. Looking forward to him not being protected, and his and him going to Parler or whatever, and we'll see how that goes. Let's see. I'll answer some more questions. Concern about the 100,000 absentee ballots in Pennsylvania. So there was a Supreme Court ruling that came down from, I believe, Alito, and he basically said that in Pennsylvania you have to segregate the ballots that came in as mail ballots, I believe, that arrived postmarked in time but arrived later, and everyone was like, "Oh, they're doing it. They finally have their case in the Supreme Court where they're gonna steal the election." And then if you looked a little bit deeper into that, you would also recognize that that's exactly what they're doing in Pennsylvania. So they're doing it already. So Alito basically ruled that Pennsylvania should continue to do what they're already doing. So I wouldn't be too concerned about what's happening in Pennsylvania. Also, these absentee ballots, I don't think are going to be, the ballots in question that Alito was talking about, I don't think are going to be an issue, because the margin in Pennsylvania is going to continue to grow, and it's going to grow exponentially, because not only do we have all of these mail ballots, even in ruby red counties, that are coming in, but mail ballot, and by mail ballots I mean ballots for Joe. So even in the reddest counties in the middle of the state, these ballots are still coming in Joe Biden's favor because they're mail ballots. And so even in the reddest counties, even if you have 10% of the vote for Biden and 90% for Trump, well, that 90% has already been counted. So even in these red counties where Trump led and Biden had 10, 20, 30, 40% of the vote, which is a pretty hefty defeat in those counties, well, those votes haven't been counted yet. So those are the votes we're seeing. And then, of course, you have Philadelphia, which is breaking in Biden's favor by huge margins. So I'm talking like 90% margins at some point. So I'm not worried about Pennsylvania. I think Pennsylvania is probably our best bet. And if I had to put money on it, I would say that they call Pennsylvania tomorrow. Somebody asked me if I'd ever consider running for office. I do not think I would run for office. I'm happy doing this. I think this is my jam. Somebody had asked about Rudy being charged for treason. And I can't really speak to the specifics of like what anybody could be charged for, but what I would like to see is in the next administration is absolutely not okay, Democrats are in power, it's time to restore order and normalcy and to heal the wounds. Like, there have been people who have committed crimes so egregious that they've fundamentally risked what's happening in our democracy. And I'm talking about people like Louis DeJoy. And the last thing that I would want to see anybody do is go easy on him. So I hope that the next, whether it's the Attorney General or whether it's, U.S. attorneys around the country, whoever it is, I hope that the people who deserve accountability, that they get it. I am not looking to kowtow to any Republicans or lay down for any Republicans because the onus is always on Democrats to have to take the high road. I would say screw that. Like, they have spent 4 years absolutely decimating every institution in our government, every law that they could get their hands on. The Hatch Act is a joke. The Emoluments Clause is a joke. Trump has pilfered taxpayers. He's lined his pockets to a degree that would seem impossible to any rational human being. We have seen him award no-bid contracts to his friends. It happened in Puerto Rico. The Interior Secretary Zinke had his buddies who created a brand new company. I think it was called, I can't remember the name, but a no-bid contract to basically restore the entire infrastructure of Puerto Rico. It has been outright egregious corruption since the very beginning of this administration. And so So yeah, the last thing I think we need to do is say like, okay, we're in power. We're supposed to be the party where, taking the high road is not laying down for criminals. It's holding them accountable. So so that's my spiel on charging people. I think I think that the number one thing we should do is make sure that we hold people to account, starting with Trump and Louis DeJoy, who I would love to see nothing more than who I would love to see nothing more than for them to have to answer for their crimes and actually be held to account for what they've done. Okay, someone had asked, who's the majority leader in the Senate in the event of a 50-50 tie? The Senate leader, if I'm not mistaken, I've researched this a little bit, the Senate leader is the person whose party would control the chamber, and because Democrats would have Kamala Harris to act as a tiebreaker, it would be Democrats. Don't quote me on that, but I'm 99% sure. I've done research into that because that was a question I had as well. So that's obviously the situation that we should be looking toward right now. Someone had asked, what are my thoughts on Eric Trump sharing a video of counters allegedly tampering with votes? It's on his Twitter. Eric Trump is not a reliable source. I mean, all we have seen from the right is just a slew of disinformation. The fact is, if there was any legitimate fraud happening, it would be in the courts, and they would expedite it, and we would hear about it immediately. And the fact that we're not seeing these things end up in the courts goes to show you that it's complete BS. You don't have, apparent fraud happening right in front of our faces. There's video of it. Eric Trump put it on his Twitter account, and then all of a sudden they refuse to litigate based off of it. So if it's, I would just caution against, Eric Trump being anybody's news source. And, we've seen that's one of the issues that I have with the fact that these news networks are dragging their feet, not calling this, because all it does is allow these conspiracy theories to fester. And what we know is that it is effectively an impossibility that Trump comes back in these states. So you look at states like Pennsylvania, they are mail ballots. We know how they break. They're coming from Philadelphia. We know how those ballots are breaking. Trump is not going to come back from these states. They should call it. Any other election, they would call it. But the issue really is that it's allowing these conspiracy theories and these complete BS, sources of disinformation to just spread across conservative social media. And Eric Trump and the rest of, his Fox News sycophants are the purveyors of that, the worst purveyors of that. So, there was I think one of these tweets had like millions of views, 285,000 likes, and it showed all of these people who were apparently born on January 1st, 1900, who had voted in this election. And so they're saying, oh, all these people would be 120 and they're voting in this election. How many dead people are Democrats going to allow to vote before we look into this? But all that it shows is that it was clerical error, because anybody that's ever done data entry for personnel knows that when you don't know someone's birthday, what do you put? 1100. So in this case, it would be January 1st, 1900. That does not mean that they were born in 1900. That means we didn't know their birthday. So, but of course, now most of conservative social media thinks that 120,000 120-year-olds just voted in the last election. So that's how this disinformation spreads on the right. And of course, you'll have the fact check that gets 2,000 likes, and meanwhile the source of misinformation in and of itself is at 12.7 million views, and the president of the United States is screaming about it in an all caps tweet. But look to what they actually litigate in the courts. And if you look at the cases that they brought forward in the courts, you'll notice that they don't have anything. The first case came yesterday morning. It was in Georgia. They were basically bringing forward this accusation that 53 ballots came in after the deadline, and the judge said, okay, well, what proof do you have of that? And they said, well, somebody said it. And they said, okay, well, that's hearsay. What evidence do you have? And they said, well, we don't have any evidence. And the judge said, cool, case dismissed. And then the next case came forward. It was in Michigan. And they basically said, we want a poll observer. We want to halt counts until our observers can come in. And they said, well, because nobody's watching the polls on behalf of Donald Trump. And they said, okay, well, do you have anybody on the campaign's behalf in that room right now? And the Trump campaign said, well, yeah, we do. And the judge literally said, well, what are we doing here? And so that case was dismissed. The same thing happened in Pennsylvania. They tried to halt vote counting until they can. I think what they wanted to do is just let the horde of vigilante MAGA moms to come in and make sure that nobody was stealing the election. And so, you have MAGA Margaret coming in with her American flag hat and her Donald Trump flag here that's gonna save the election from the Antifa super soldiers who are obviously rigging the votes. And so obviously that case in Pennsylvania was dismissed. So it's just been loss after loss after loss. And if any of these supposedly glaring instances of fraud had any legitimacy to them, they would be litigated in the courts. And the fact that they're not should speak volumes. So I know that some people are asking for an update on the counts. So let's go to that update right now. Here we go. I'm going to go through the races really quick so that you all know what's going on. So let's start off with Arizona. Joe Biden is leading by 29,800 votes. In the state of Arizona, that margin is actually shrinking. It's going in Trump's favor, but it's not moving in Trump's favor enough to actually flip that race. There was a point yesterday where basically what Trump had to do was hit a 60% margin in the returns that were coming back, and he was hitting exactly that. He was hitting 59, 60, 61% on these votes that would come in his favor. And so basically we knew that if it continued coming in at that rate with those margins, that he would eventually overtake Biden. And then we came to see that as those votes continued to come in, that Trump's margin was dropping from 60% down to about 51%. So as it stands right now, there is not a path at these current margins for Trump to overtake Biden in Arizona. Next door, we look at the state of Nevada, which is a state of 12 people, and they are still stuck counting those 12 votes. So we should hear some point in the next 2 years on Nevada. So I look forward to that. In reality, Biden is up 22,000 votes in Nevada. The vast majority of those votes are coming from Clark County still, which is Las Vegas, and they will fall overwhelmingly in Biden's favor. So we'll continue to widen our lead coming out of Nevada, and hopefully that'll be done hopefully at some point tomorrow, I would imagine. And then finally we look into Georgia. Georgia this morning, Biden was leading by about 1,600 votes. He's tripled his lead to 4,400 votes. I know that we are still waiting, I believe, on several thousand votes that still are outstanding, and then I believe 8,500 military votes or provisional ballots that should have arrived by today. So we'll likely see them tomorrow. But regardless, I believe because Georgia is so close, I think it's within 1/10 of a point, we're in recount territory in Georgia. So they'll likely start the recount shortly. That recount will go on until after Thanksgiving, at which point they'll certify the results. So those are the states we're dealing with right now. I do want to point out one more thing, and that's with the state of Georgia. We are looking at both Senate races going to a runoff. So John Ossoff's race against David Perdue and Warnock's race against Kelly Loeffler. Those runoffs are going to be on January 5th. If you don't know what a runoff is, it's basically everybody gets on the ballot for Election Day. If nobody exceeds the 50% mark, then the top two vote getters move to a runoff. So in both of those races, nobody hit that 50% point, and both of those races are going to go to a January 5th runoff now. And because the 4 Senate races that are outstanding right now are Alaska, where our chances are probably the least likely that we'll be able to flip that seat away from Dan Sullivan, is is North Carolina, which is probably the second least likely state that will be able to flip that away from Tom Tillis. Right now, Cal Cunningham is down by 97,000 votes, but we'll see. We're still keeping our eyes on that state, and I believe they have several days to continue accepting ballots that were postmarked in time. And then finally, those last two races are Warnock and Ossoff. And right now, even if we lose Alaska and North Carolina, what those two Georgia races would do if we are lucky enough to win them, if we work hard enough to win them, is basically give us a 50-50 Senate, in which case Kamala Harris as vice president would act as tiebreaker. So I cannot stress enough how much we need that, because the future of any progressive legislation relies on us being able to have that Senate. Basically, if we don't have the Senate, our legislative agenda stops cold in its tracks. So, and I don't mean to scare you, but the reality of the situation is that it is scary because, that is the future of climate change legislation relies on us having a Senate to be able to pass that. The future of voting rights legislation, so that we can try to expand our majority in the Senate from what is already entrenched Republican minority rule, relies on being able to first get the Senate so that we can pass it, so that we can fix our broken voting system, so that we can reduce instances of voter suppression that still exist around the country. There's no reason why voters in the state of Georgia should be waiting 11 hours online to cast their ballot. It would protect against foreign interference. It would protect against, it would create a national holiday on election day. So, and besides that, making sure that we have protections, that we can codify protections for women to be able to choose what they do with their own bodies, to codify protections for LGBT Americans, and so much relies on the Senate. So I can't stress enough how important these two races are going to be in Georgia. So if you're just tuning in, I had spoken earlier about keeping all eyes on what happens in Georgia, and just basically all of the energy that you were expending. And I know that we've gone through this and we've done the election thing, and it's tired. But so much rests on Georgia. So all of the energy that you had been expending on Texas and Arizona and Florida and Nevada, North Carolina, Georgia, Alaska, bring that all back to Georgia. That's where all of our attention should be. If you're looking for somewhere to be able to vote, I'm certain that two really good places to be able to donate some money are going to be Jon Ossoff and Raphael Warnock. Beyond that, look to Stacey Abrams. Fair Fight is her organization. So if you're looking for something to Google, if you got some money burning a hole in your pocket, or you just want to help democracy, Fair Fight is going to be a great option, and that's where I'm going to basically be taking all of my cues from. Stacey Abrams knows that state best, and so I'm sure that she'll be the one to know how to facilitate, how to use those funds better than anybody else. I see somebody has said that Mark Meadows has COVID, so let me just check this out real quick and see. Oh yeah. Mark Meadows has coronavirus. So Mark Meadows, the one who's been speaking with reporters constantly. It's not just Mark Meadows, a White House aide and a campaign staffer all just tested positive for coronavirus. So, if you needed any indication of how much this administration has failed at containing the virus, look at how they themselves have become vectors for the very virus that they failed to contain. It's not just the fact that the virus is dangerous. It is the fact that the people themselves are dangerous walking vectors for this virus. So, yet another Trump administration official contracts coronavirus. It is just, the faster we can get these people out of office, out of positions of power, so that we can have some adults finally take charge and who know how to protect themselves at the very least. Just how to protect themselves, how to not contract the virus that they should, of all people, be able to working in the White House, the most secure place on the face of the earth. if you can't manage to protect yourself in the White House, I mean, it's no surprise that they've, that this virus has spread so far out of control from the leadership, from the top all the way down to the bottom with regard to this virus is just, it's scary. I don't know, like, what libs they're owning by refusing to wear masks. Like, I don't feel owned by the fact that Chris Christie was in the hospital for a week, like die to own the libs, So, but hey, what do I know? What do I know about owning the libs? Maybe I am owned by the fact that Mark Meadows contracted coronavirus. He showed me, because at least he didn't give up his freedom, right? So that's the important thing. At least he didn't give up his freedom and his American exceptionalism and small government and liberty and strong Second Amendment. He has that going for him. So, well, and as some coastal elite, I wouldn't know a thing about freedom. So we'll just assume that Mark Meadows is doing the right thing. Will I be able to make as much content with a sane president? I think there's plenty to talk about. First of all, the Republican Party isn't going to disappear, and I think that's something that's important to remember. The Republicans don't the bad. It's not like it almost feels like, that zombie movie where everybody gets bit, and like your family and your friends get bit, and they're zombies, and then the main zombie dies, like the head zombie, the mother zombie underground, and all of the other people who were infected suddenly wake up and they're like, oh, where am I? Oh, I have a headache, and everything is back to normal. It ain't that. Like, these QAnon supporters, these MAGA people who think that coronavirus is a hoax, that masks are some democratic plot to control your mind, that George Soros is here, whatever, controlling the highest levers of government. Those people don't go away. Their brains don't get fixed overnight the second that Trump loses. So I think that there's going to be plenty of content to make, but it's not just about that. I mean, look, I am overwhelmingly pro Biden, and I would love nothing more than to be able to say, like, let's go further. Let's go further left. We should have stronger climate change legislation. We should have stronger protections for workers. We should have stronger union regulations. We should have stronger protection for women and LGBT Americans and Native Americans, and take away every single subsidy for fossil fuels. I mean, like, whatever it is, I would love to be in a situation where my principal concern isn't the downfall of democracy. And so I do hope that one day we're in a situation where we could say, like, hey, it would be better if we went further left. It would be better if we helped more people. It would be better if we made whatever legislation more expansive, so that more people can be involved, more people can benefit from it. So hopefully we get there, and hopefully it's not just the same obstructionist bullshit that we've seen for the last 12 years from Republicans in Congress, from 2008 onward. I know that the first thing that Mitch McConnell said when Barack Obama took office was, we're going to do everything we can to obstruct his agenda. And that's what it's been like ever since. I mean, Mitch McConnell's basically been in charge since then. And so I would love for there not to be these perpetual villains standing in the way, so that we could focus on saying, like, okay, we have something that's good, let's make it great. Instead of, okay, we have something that is god awful, let's just try to not have that, So anyway, that's those are my thoughts with regard to content in the future. So let's see if you have any more questions. Just throw them in the stream. I'll probably answer questions for a short while longer, and then head to bed or something. I'm not sure what day it is, and I don't remember the last time I slept or ate. So that's where we're at right now. Am I going to stay independent? Yeah, I'm not going to, I don't want to, I want to be my own boss. So I'm going to keep doing my thing and being accountable to myself and to you and to nobody else. So that's my plan. What is my thoughts on the Electoral College? I think the Electoral College should be I think the way to overcome the Electoral College is the National Popular Vote Compact. And that basically says that any states that sign on to it, those states will award their electoral votes, regardless of how their specific state votes, they'll award their electoral votes to whoever wins the national popular vote. And so what that would basically do is supersede the Electoral College and make us a country that is one person, one vote. Like, we're supposed to be this beacon of democracy in the free world, and yet you can win an election in the United States by losing 3 million votes. The fact is that in the last 8 elections, Republicans have won 1 out of the last 8, and yet they've had they've won 3 presidential elections based on the Electoral College. They've shaped the vast majority of the Supreme Court. You have a president in Trump who had no mandate. He lost by 3 million votes, and he has made up a third of the Supreme Court unilaterally. So the Electoral College is an absolute travesty. It's a democratic disaster. So I think that if your state has not signed on to the National Popular Vote Compact, and you are the kind of person who wants to reach out to your representative for something, that is a very good issue to reach out on, because right now, it's not a very democratic process when you have votes being chosen, when there could still be doubt after being down by 5 million votes or 6 million votes. So, I mean, think about it. If Trump had just a couple of these states that Biden is only barely leading in right now, he could be president. He could have won re-election, and Biden's up by almost 6 million votes. So that's my thoughts on the Electoral College. Do I think Democrats can win the runoffs in Georgia? Absolutely. I think that not only can we win, but we're going to have the momentum. We are coming off of what will likely be a statewide win in Georgia for the first time since 1996 that a Democrat has flipped that state. That is a huge, huge boon to us as we enter these runoffs. And Biden has shown that we can win in that state. Stacey Abrams probably showed that we could win in that state, and yet she was had it stolen from her. But I think that we need to hunker down and continue registering people in that state. We need to continue reaching out and getting, pouring money and time and whatever they need so that we can register every last person in that state. I think if Biden has shown us anything, it's that a Democrat can win in this election cycle. And if people are going to turn out for Biden, there is no reason to believe that they wouldn't turn out for Senate races that would basically enable him to enact his agenda. Without these Senate races, Biden's entire agenda is in a way dead on arrival. So, this is half of the package. You can't go to the polls and elect Joe Biden and not also have the same intensity to want, to have to basically elect people who are going to give him the opportunity to put his agenda forward. So for that reason, I think that absolutely those runoffs are winnable. How likely is it that Republican senators are relieved after having to pander to Trump just to keep their jobs? Mitch and Lindsey really hated him 4 years ago. I think that it's not necessary. I don't think it's a matter of them being relieved, because that would assume that they could finally breathe easy and retain some of their dignity. These people don't have dignity. If you have somebody like Lindsey Graham, who you don't find yourself shoved that far into Trump's colon, let's just say, if you had any shred of dignity. So I don't know that anything is going to change now that Trump is gone. that Lindsey Graham will suddenly, like I said before, just like snap right back to the person who he used to be, which at least was a moderately dignified person before Trump came along. But all Trump did is bring out these people's true colors. This is who they were. They had this facade of being, like a reasonable, moderate Republican. But when push comes to shove, look at the justices they voted for. Look at the legislation that they voted for. Look at the way that they hold back climate change legislation as wildfires rage in California and hurricanes decimate the Southeast and tornadoes and drought ravage the Midwest. I mean, and they stand idly by. That is not somebody even if you spoke, if you speak calmly and you're just, give the aura of being dignified, that is not somebody who has decency, right? Like it's about your actions and not your words. So that's who these people really are. And I think with or without Trump, Trump exposed the worst of them, but I think that's who they were deep down the whole time. So with that said, I'm gonna try to figure out what day it is and if I have a bed or something. So thank you guys so much for tuning in. If you're not yet subscribed to my channel, give me one more minute. I'll actually just make one last plug. If you're not subscribed to my channel, please subscribe. I'll try to make like 1 or 2 videos a day, usually just 5-minute summaries of whatever's happened. I don't ask for money or anything like that, but just subscribe to my channel if you haven't yet. I really appreciate it. And thank you so much for listening in, and hopefully I'll be able to come back on tomorrow with some good news, and we'll be able to to refer to Joe Biden as the president-elect. So we're any minute now. So thank you, and have a great night, everybody.
Bye.